Welcome to Under the Hood, your fortnightly insight and recap into accounting's leading topics and practical insights. Brought to you by Accountants Daily.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Under the Hood, brought to you by Accountants Daily. Can you believe it? We are already halfway through the year. We have had so much come across our desks, especially in the last couple of weeks, and it will be really interesting to see what happens and what unfolds as we enter tax time at the end of June. As always, I am your host, Imogen Wilson, and today I am joined in the podcast studio but not one, but two special guests, directors at Legal and Accounting Home Loans, Cullen, Haynes and Andrew Johnson. Gentlemen, how are we? Thanks so much for jumping on the pod today.
Hi, Imogen. Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks so much, Imogen. Happy to be here.
We are so happy to have you both. And I must say, these two right now are suited up. We've got a three-piece suit across from me and a lovely tie, AJ.
Thanks, Imogen.
So good to see. So tell me, guys, how has the start of your year been in lending land?
Look, it's been quite exciting with potential rate drops coming. We have seen still people getting pre-approvals and refinancing. So I think everyone was holding their breath with the election. So now that that's done, I think everyone's just waiting to see what happens today, Imogen, with the RBA rate announcement at 2:30.
Absolutely. So for when this episode comes out, it will be past the cash rate decision. But today at 2:30, when we are recording, there is a decision coming today. Do you guys have anything to say about that? What are your predictions? Any comments?
Look, I always say, Imogen, our crystal ball is broken. We'd love to see a rate cut. It would be nice if they went with the double rate cut as NAB is predicting. They're the only bank that is. It's a 0.5% rate cut. But at the very least, I can confidently say at least a 0.25% rate cut today.
That is what we want to hear. And also in accounting, obviously we don't talk about it a lot, but these two specialise in home loans for lawyers and accountants. Now that is very interesting, guys. What made you choose lawyers and accountants? Two very savvy money flow, cash flow, contract professions.
Yeah. Well, we started with law, obviously, and all your friends at Lawyers Weekly. We've been in here a couple of times. First time on Accountants Daily, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful professional profile, both the accounting and law. They're professionals that people lean on to really fix their problems and take care of their financial house, particularly in accountants. And we sort of had the idea to look after them from a lending standpoint. They are able to borrow money quite differently from the regular population, but there's not a lot of education out there in the market as to how or where they can go to get that specialized treatment. So we founded, obviously, Legal Home Loans first, for the lawyers, and are now in that same vein looking to take on the accounting profession.
It's really interesting. So if there are accountants out there who do not know that there is differences when going for a home loan, definitely tune into the rest of this podcast because we will be chatting about it. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room. So if you're from Sydney or you're from New South Wales, you would have seen it was the Hocker Half Marathon a couple of weeks ago. And as a Gen Zer myself, I was, scrolling on the TikTok and this video comes up of a man running this half marathon in a three-piece suit. Turns out it's actually Cullen, who is sitting across from me now also in a three-piece suit.
Not the same one, Imogen. I got it dry cleaned. It's all good.
Well, let's hope not. It was very sweaty from what I saw on the video. But tell me the inspiration behind this. What was going on there? Yeah,
look, AJ and I are quite active. We always participate in these kind of events. And this year I thought, let's do something differently. I thought, let's pick a great charity, Sydney Children's Hospital Foundation, running for sick kids. And I thought, these families are going through some terrible heartache and pain. I can at least do something different and do it for at least an hour and a half, or 2 hours it took me. So I thought I'd wear my most summery three-piece and do 21.1 Ks. And look, I knew it was a bad decision halfway through. When I looked
Not at the start line?
Not at the start line. Everyone was like, oh, that's a great idea. And I go, is it? Let's see. But halfway through, I was all sweaty and I'm like, can I do this? But, shout out to the other runners. There was 20,000 of them. I got so many pats on the back, and that's what got me over the finish line. So it was absolutely amazing. Great experience.
The suit pants would have just made it, horrendous.
Oh,
but
yes.
What an awesome thing to do. And I bet, did you take the suit off as you went, or it stayed on?
It stayed on. I kept the top button up. The jacket didn't come off. AJ,
I couldn't believe it.
He was waiting at
were
the
you
end.
were you on the end? Like, what are you doing?
I honestly, I thought that, it would be a suit in tatters, that the arms would be ripped off, but I couldn't believe it. The man still had his bow tie on.
Well, hopefully we still see you next year, running in a three-piece suit. Maybe add a top hat next year.
A top hat. Someone said, why don't you do the full marathon, Cullen? I'm like, oh my goodness.
The pants
Princess
would be
costume.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was a guy in a unicorn costume that passed me. I'm like, if that guy can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely. That is too funny. So now that you guys are, in this profession and you've got your business and it's thriving and it's booming and you're doing really cool stuff, how did you get to where you are today? Where did you go in your careers to land you in these seats across from me?
Well, yeah, it was. I think this was the brainchild of Mr. Andrew Johnson back in 2018 . Maybe the founding story.
I ended up working. I had a very generic mortgage broking business, and I was working out of a lawyer's. A friend of mine who had started a law firm. I was working out of his office, and one day, just conversations in the office. Who does finance for you guys? Who's looking after you? And there was sort of a crickets coming back, and those particular gentlemen were very unaware that they could do all these things that they didn't know were possible, because for some reason the banks in Australia have all these special credit policies for certain professions, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and just don't advertise them. They don't say anything publicly about them. They're not educating their mortgage brokers about them. They're certainly not saying anything to the profession. So it was sort of a light bulb moment. And then in law, it's been a crazy 8 years where we've sort of gone all across the whole country. We've managed to partner with all the law societies and all the bar associations, and have, helped thousands of lawyers get into homes faster, finance firms, finance chambers for barristers. I mean, we've had an amazing business. And we're sort of now looking at what's the next profession that we can add this to, add our service to. Doctors are very well looked after professionally.
Of course they are.
Yes, everyone wants. When you become a broker, you either look after everyone or doctors.
Yeah.
So there's lots of people looking after doctors, and that's great. We sort of thought that, accountants have a very similar professional profile and are similarly, unaware of what's going on. That's our anecdotal evidence just from our market research initially. So, for us, it was a no-brainer. And as I said before, everybody expects their accountant to know everything. They are really expected to know all about lending, even though lending is totally out of their remit. So, we say in law, let us look after your finances whilst we, focus on the law and your career whilst we'll keep your financial house in order.
That's it.
There we
That's
go.
it.
There
Absolutely.
it
What
is.
is the? Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at the market.
Wait, what do we do again?
And it's a very similar rhetoric with accountants. You do your thing, take care of your clients as you do so well. And we'll look after the lending for you, because that's our area of expertise.
You're an expert. You need an expert on your side. And when I used to be at Macquarie, because that's where I joined LHL from back in the day, there used to be a graph that we used to show our clients, and it was a graph between trust and likability. And lawyers, brokers, bankers were at the bottom left-hand side of the graph, and the accountant was in the stratosphere. People trust them more than their life partner most times, so they're in a great position.
They definitely are. But so when you started working with accountants, what was their response to that? Were they like, this is what we've needed? Or were they a little bit, standoffish, a little bit arrogant, going, we don't need you, we know what we're doing?
The overwhelming response was relief.
Yeah.
And it was like a finally, thank goodness, we just launched our partnership with Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand, which we were working on for, quite a while to get that off the ground. Our sort of initial communications have gone out through those channels, and the overwhelming response that we've got back has been, thank goodness we've been waiting for this for so long. I can't believe no one's been doing it. Take care of it from here, please.
Tell me more about this partnership with Chartered Accountants. So we have a lot of CAs, obviously, and a lot of CPAs and who listen in. And if they don't know about this partnership that you guys are running and that you now have with Chartered Accountants ANZ, tell them about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are now official member benefits partners with CA ANZ, which we're really proud of. It took us a long time to get that over the line. CANZ certainly, put us through our paces in terms of their due diligence, which you would expect from an organisation, with such prestige. So we're really proud to be on that program. It's a really great program where they have different providers that look after lifestyle factors, insurance, and now us for home loans. So we're offering cash rebates for loans settled that come through that program, and obviously all our specialised service that we offer. So, yeah, we're very, very excited to be part of that program.
Absolutely. And so how does your process work? Tell me about, you've got the teams now, you've got legal accounting or legal home loans and accounting home loans.
Yep.
Are you all working across the law and the accounting profession, or do you have specific people who look after the lawyers and then specific people who look after the accountants?
That's a great question.
Yes.
I love it.
Nobody knows.
I love it because, obviously, we believe that would sort of dilute the offering somewhat if we had
Really?
people working across both. Yeah,
Correct.
so we've got
Okay.
specialised teams that work in accounting, and we have specialised teams that work in law. So whoever you're speaking to
Is an industry specialist.
is an industry specialist. Yeah, that's very important to us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And how do you become an industry specialist as a lender?
As a broker.
Well, as a broker?
It starts at the bottom.
Right.
It starts, you be working in our administrative support sort of roles for underneath one of our professional lending specialists or a legal lending specialist. We have this wonderful knowledge hub within our office. Just because we've been doing it for so long, that sort of flows right down to the bottom. And as people come up, they become very familiar with the credit policies and familiar with the style of person that is a lawyer, that is an accountant, and what their needs are from someone that they're working with on their finances, which is obviously a very, very important life decision, right? It pertains to their home, or to their firm, or, so it's very, very important stuff. With accounting, a lot of it was, for us, getting up to speed was a crash course. It was combing through all the credit policies at all the different banks. Where are accountants mentioned? What can they get? How can we best represent our accountants so they're getting amazing outcomes on all their home loans and all their commercial loans as well. So, yeah.
So obviously I am not a genius in this area or the accounting area, really, if I'm honest. I'm just here to talk about it with everyone. But tell me about this process and what's different for accountants and lawyers. Why do they get more, or why is it different for them? Tell me the whole process. I want to know the nitty-gritty. I want the listeners to know the nitty-gritty.
Oh, great question, Imogen. Starting with, I guess, the secret sauce is both lawyers and accountants are seen as low risk in the eyes of the banks, as Andrew said. So because people always need contracts, people always need their taxes done, right? So they deem it that because they're low risk, they can borrow more. So as the average civilian, you, me, AJ, can only borrow up to 80%. Lawyers and accountants, because of their lower risk in the eyes of the banks, can actually borrow with just a 10% deposit. So they can actually borrow up to 90%. And that's across the board: owner-occupied, investment, construction, top-ups. It's a very versatile product. There's only 5 banks that do it. And, depending on the bank or broker you speak to, they may not know about this product. We've had clients come to us, both lawyers and accountants, saying, speaking with my broker, I'm being put into this bank, which I'm paying LMI. And, it's just an industry knowledge thing. So that's the big benefit, which is amazing. In terms of the process, because we're platinum brokers across both businesses, what that means is we're in the top 1%. We tend to get preferential rates, turnaround times, and credit policies. So from end to end, soup to nuts, as it were, someone comes in who is either a lawyer or an accountant. They have a 10 to 15-minute consultation with one of our brokers. We come back within 24 hours with a path forward. This is the solution. We lodge within 24 hours as well. The good thing about dealing with accountants and lawyers is they usually send their documents in one email. It's not over many.
Fabulous.
And in the current market, it's about between 24 hours to a week to get approval. And if you're buying a home, it lasts for 3 months. So, yeah, or 90 days. So that gives you the peace of mind that you've got your pre-approval. You can go out and bid with confidence. And if you don't find a property, we can always roll it over. We've got clients that have their pre-approvals like gym memberships. They have it, but they never use it. But we can always roll it over, which is very handy. I would say for lawyers and accountants, it's within 3 to 6 months is when they usually buy. Once they get their pre-approval. They're quite transactional. They know what they want. And the data suggests, even though we've been doing this only a year, that accountants usually have more than one property. So they're quite sophisticated in that regard. They've got investment properties, 2 to 3 properties.
For sure. They all want the tax deductions
Of course.
and the depreciations and whatnot.
Yeah.
So it is such an interesting area, and we have, touched on that it's not known, and some accountants don't know about this and some brokers don't know about this.
Yes.
How are you guys helping spread this information, or are you doing anything to, share this with the community as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always been our goal to educate first. So we really try and steer away from salesy presentations in any capacity, anywhere. What we're looking to do is educate the market. And if someone is very well looked after where they are and they have that information and take it away and do with it what they will, that's fine. But we are looking to do some webinars with CAANZ later this year, I believe, just educating the profession on what's available to them. So anyone who's subscribed to CA will see those. We work with firms individually, and we do presentations within firms just to educate again.
Part of our staff benefits offering.
Correct. Podcasts like this.
What?
With amazing podcast hosts.
Hang on, where are we?
Go on.
And we're in the podcast studio.
So lots of different ways. Of course, if you go on our website, there's blogs. There's that's all there. The keys to the kingdom are there. And then obviously, our specialists really work to tailor what's out there to your individual circumstance, so that we can't give away, but everything else is certainly out there for everyone to see.
Accountants love the whole business side of things, and they would probably be interested in, how you guys have started, legal home loans to then grow to accounting home loans.
Yep.
What's on the pipeline for you guys? Are you hoping to just grow and grow and grow, or are you going to keep your client base quite small?
I think we'll be selective with our client base.
Yeah.
There are some other professional niches that we've sort of, thought about serving. At this point in time, we're very much, we're sort of the number one name in legal nationally, and we're really, really happy with that. We'd like to do the same in accounting.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
Thanks, Imogen. Had to put that in there. We're looking to do the same in accounting, and we've got a lot of investment behind that. Both in terms of our time and financially. So we're looking for that to succeed, and then we may look at serving other niches, depending on our resource. But yeah, sort of have to
one
stay.
profession at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're trying to take what we did with legal home loans in 7 years and do it within 2 to 3 years in AHL, because we've got the industry knowledge, the foundation, and I think it really helps. Like, they do ask, "Oh, I see you do legal." The legal community as well. I think it just builds trust that we know what we're doing.
Absolutely. Also, what if somebody comes to you, because we've got a lot of people that are just accountants because it leads them elsewhere. What if somebody comes to you and says, "Hi, I'm a lawyer and a chartered accountant."
There are a couple of those.
What happens then? What route do you take? What's better?
I don't know. We'll put 2 in the office on them and see who.
Battle it out in the middle. Fight.
That is definitely a joke.
It's not.
I think, it's a rare case. We see lots of lawyers and doctors, interestingly,
of
as well.
course, yeah.
The thing is, if there's a policy that fits you, we're always just gonna try and get you the most in any setting, right? So that's kind of how we go. How can we exploit exploit might be the wrong word. Maybe edit.
How can we leverage your profession?
How do we leverage?
If any of
in
the
the
lawyers
best
are listening,
mean
don't
possible.
listen to that
No
word.
exploitation.
How do
here.
we? I meant exploit the banks. Anyway, how do we leverage your profession? As well as we can to get you the most out of whichever lender we're looking to work with. So,
If somebody came to you and said, I'm a first home buyer, and then somebody came to you and said, I'm a fifth-time home buyer, is there a difference there? Any differences with that situation or the process in, what they can apply for and what they can get?
Look, they'll still get our industry knowledge, our platinum broking, and et cetera. It would be the way in which we explain the process to them. A first home buyer does need a little bit more hand-holding, explaining how a pre-approval works and everything like that. So I would say it's just the time invested at the start. But when we're talking to investors, they've done it many times before. So we try and, we cater to the client, right? So we understand that many of these people who have multiple investment properties have probably used a bank or broker before. So we take that into consideration, but none of them have used our service before. So that's why we want to wow them with that.
I think it would be just such little bargaining chip as well for, the accounting industry is facing a talent shortage. That's our big news at the moment.
Massive.
If you throw in, you get some certain benefits with your home buying,
Yes.
boom.
Yeah. Well, and that's been very compelling in the legal space, which is why over 40% of big law firms have partnered with us on the staff benefits program. So, any HR people listening, we're happy to give that benefit to your team because everyone's trying to attract top talent. Everyone's given away, no disrespect to gym memberships and vouchers and things. Those things are great, but why
We
not
hate
give?
gym memberships.
No, come on,
Lock in?
come on.
Oh.
What are you talking about? But why not give your staff the biggest benefit in their life, which is buying a home?
Buying a home. Well, is there anything for journalists out there, guys?
not that we know of.
do you want to enter the journalist realm?
There's funnily enough, there's none for brokers either.
No.
We sort of spend our days, organizing all these wonderful deals and don't have access to them ourselves.
You don't have access to them either.
No.
You'd think as a broker you get the inside info.
You would think you need a practicing certificate or you need to be a member of one of these associations.
Or marry someone who's a lawyer or an accountant.
Maybe it's
Or a
time
doctor.
to...
Or a doctor.
Yeah, maybe it's time to become an accountant, guys.
Well, yeah. I mean, and these are significant... I can't remember the exact stat, but in terms of years that you'd have to save, the difference between a 10% or a 20% deposit...
It's 12 years.
It's 12 years.
12 years in a city like Sydney or Melbourne.
Yeah.
Sydney is nuts.
No, Sydney is crazy.
Sydney is nuts. I'm originally from WA, and so Perth is just, get my coffee for $4.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm walking down the street and buying a coffee for $8, and I think, that's all right. It's okay.
We often have a
Eating
chuckle.
into that deposit.
Yeah.
When someone
What
sends
deposit?
their address of their property in Perth, I'm like, look, they're buying a mansion on the beach and it's only this amount. And it's like you can get only a shoebox here in Sydney.
Isn't it crazy? Even my rent here is just nuts.
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't talk about Sydney and how expensive it is.
No, of course.
We could talk for a long
We
time.
could, we could make this episode all about Sydney and how expensive it is. But what would you guys say is the top 3 things you would want to tell accountants or lawyers if you were to give a crash course on what you do and what they could get? What are the top 3 things?
Absolutely. Firstly, I'd say speak to a specialist broker.
Definitely.
So, because it's the same way that they operate. They're experts in their spaces. Professionally, it makes sense for people to be using them in the spaces that they're experts in. It's the same for us. Come to someone who knows exactly what they're doing for exactly the type of loan application that you're seeking, which is you as a lawyer or an accountant. That's number one. And then I'd say utilize the 90%,
Definitely.
10% deposit, no LMI loan, because that's going to benefit you the most. And the other one I'd say is for our self-employed accountants and lawyers, it's funny, that's where it even gets more beneficial to be speaking to someone who knows what they're doing, because the benefits are amazing for someone who's employed PAYG in a firm. They're even better for someone who's out on their own.
Tell me why.
Well, because the way that the banks assess self-employed income is so diverse, and some of it doesn't frankly make any sense. Some of it's really interesting, the way that one lender over another will look at some obscure piece of someone's financials and deem that loan to be viable or not viable. So even more so when you're self-employed, seek the advice. And, our advice is essentially free to the end user. We're paid by the banks. That's not built into anyone's rate
or repayment.
There's legislation that actually protects against that. So it's a no-cost, use for the end user. So I would say, for accountants particularly, this applies to law as well, but, you practice in a certain area and are very good at it and are advising people every day, which is excellent. That's why you're so valuable to society. Let someone else look after your finances. You don't have to do it all.
Wow, that's really nice. I mean, they'd probably be like, I don't want somebody else to look after my finances. Yeah. But it would be such a help.
Well, It's outsourcing that time. We've done the data on it. It's about 31 billable hours, in law land to do an application yourself. And most people are doing it at work. So, if you can outsource that, you're not looking after it. And on the self-employed front, it counts for partners as well. When you're a newly minted salaried or equity partner at either the Big Four,
that's a good
Big
point.
Four accounting firms or the big top-tier law firms, you'd be amazed. You think you're walking off the street, talk to the banker, I'm a partner. We've had partners become a partner and the banker asks them for the financials of Minter Ellison. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we understand which banks can verify your income in an alternative way, resting on a CFO letter, a HR letter, and a bank statement on 1 month as being a partner, instead of going, we need 2 years financials, which we've heard many times before. So, I would say the other thing is it's not all about the rate. It is all about your personal situation and the credit policy with the bank, and also I've got kids, so Shrek is very popular. So the banks are like onions, right? There's many layers of the banks. There's not just the retail end of the bank, which you can access through your bank or your broker. It's the private bank. It's the commercial bank where you actually get for free a banker who's on your side, especially if you're a little bit more seasoned in accounting or law. We have exclusive access to the top bankers in Australia.
Wow.
So that makes a huge difference, especially if you're a sophisticated investor or homeowner.
So these banks, you said only a few offer these.
Yes.
What banks are they? And why don't more banks offer this or talk about it?
Yeah. It's interesting. The I don't know. Do we want to give those banks away?
We don't give those away.
Look.
Okay,
I would say. I would definitely say it's some of the major banks that do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason that the reason that some of them don't do it is it's just not a space that they want to play in for some reason. We've recently seen another major come to the party with a brand new LMI waive for professionals policy, which we've sort of been looking at this particular bank for years, going, "What are you doing? You're way out of the race." They've finally come to the party. Why some of them don't? Banks, they're big behemoths. They move very slow. It's very hard to get some of this policy through. So, and from our perspective, sometimes we don't understand why they do the things that
sure.
they do.
Well, I don't do any work with the banks, or I don't really, interact with the banks, obviously being in accounting, and I'm interacting with, fantastic institutions like the ATO and the government and things like that. So I don't know anything about banks and, what's going on in that world. So it is quite interesting to know, because I'm sure a lot of accountants also would, not be tuned in unless they are going for a home loan and they're looking to buy a home. Yep. But on this other side of it, guys, what are you doing, outside? What do you do in your personal life? How did you build this business to facilitate what you guys do and your passions on the outside?
Look, it's amazing. Everyone knows me either as the legal finance guy or the LinkedIn guy. So before we had our first baby, we were on our baby moon, and I was just writing in my journal.
Sorry, where was the baby moon?
It was in Byron Bay.
Lovely. That's where the baby moon spot
that's
is.
where you go. Yes. I think we stayed at, I want to say it was Shambhala, but yeah, shout out to the Shambhala people. So we were there for a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I was just writing in my journal because I like to journal. That's another thing I like to do. And I was just writing about AJ and I's journey and how we started legal home loans.
Dear Diary.
Dear Diary.
I love lawyers.
Yes, I love lawyers. They're the best people. And soon accountants when we start that business. And it just turned into like, this is chapters. This is how we built it. And it turned into the Laws of LinkedIn book, which I wrote, which is basically in the early days how we built our business. If you're an entrepreneur, professional, starting your business, there's one platform which is the top out of all of them, in my opinion, where you don't have to invest any money, just your time. And if you know how to work it, you can build a business.
Fantastic. What about you, AJ?
What? It's an interesting question. I haven't been asked that in a.
What do I do?
Yeah.
Who are you?
I don't know. I mean, we've always sort of had just this wonderful young team in the office that we've. Everyone's very ambitious, driven, and we've been very pioneering in the space. So we've been doing things that, people sort of thought were impossible, or that we got a lot of no's early on. So there's this wonderful friendship and camaraderie that exists inside our office. We always say that the work that we do is very serious, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. So, myself, Cullen, and our general manager, Aylin, we have this wonderful friendship, and all of our staff really sort of bought in. So I'd say that we have a great time sort of, all day, every day, even though it is, a very stressful environment that we work in. We're dealing with lenders on one side, lawyers or accountants on the other. You're sort of squished in the middle sometimes, but we try really hard to have a good time. We've always kept that mantra. Working with Cullen's very interesting. He's off running half marathons in 3-piece suits and writing books and doing all sorts of things. I do a bit of DJing on the side.
A very good DJ, by the way.
Bit of DJing.
Lawyers and accountants at those parties only, though,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah.
Come for the home loan, stay for the beats.
Yeah, stay for the tunes, So,
while you're signing your contract.
yeah.
Sounds like a good time. But I can second this. These two are absolutely amazing, and their energy is fantastic, and their team are so lovely. They know what they're doing. So if you are listening and you are interested, please reach out to these two at Accounting Home Loans and Legal Home Loans if you're a lawyer as well. Definitely connect with them on LinkedIn as well and get your hands on the Laws of LinkedIn, because it is fantastic. But guys, tell me, do you have any horror stories? I know that sounds terrible to ask, but do you have any funny stories or horror stories within this space before we wrap up?
Look, we want to try and make it a nice dream rather than a nightmare. But look, if there's one thing I can say is definitely speak to an expert before you buy. The typical phone call on a Monday sometimes is, Cullen, I haven't spoken to you before, but I bought at auction. I need your help. And that just
help me.
Yeah,
You are now my therapist.
Yeah, literally, you've boxed yourself into a corner, 66W. You've signed your rights away. You need to get that property, right? So it can be quite stressful for everyone involved. So to avoid that horror show, just get your pre-approval first. It's free, it doesn't cost anything, and it saves you so many nights of countless sleep.
Yeah. And yes, we have definitely had some horror stories. I can see in your face. I know what you're thinking about, but I think it's all with the space, and we sort of take it with a grain of salt. Things happen in lending applications. The banks are very difficult to deal with, and there's a lot on the line. So it's always it's always very interesting when things go wrong. Everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong.
Yes.
Whilst we've
it's always
been
the
doing
client
this.
you don't want it to happen to.
For sure.
Yeah. And there's definitely been some situations that we've been in, but we've always attacked it all with a smile, and we've always been able to get the outcome for the client in the end, no matter how interesting that roller coaster has been.
Correct.
So, definitely, which is always the message at the end, because, say if I was one of your clients and I'm the type of person I catastrophize everything, I think of every terrible outcome before.
Look for the rain clouds beyond the rainbows.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Good on you, Imogen.
So it's good that, if you're talking to a professional and they're secretly stressed behind the scenes, but you're coming out with that outcome, that's all that your clients need, is that, trust and the idea that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a term in our office that no matter what happens or goes wrong, it's on us to fix it because everyone looks to the broker. If the bank's done something, lawyers never get anything wrong, but if there's something happens with the conveyancer
accountants will look at you.
or whatever it is, we just say, look, own it. Don't never take anything personally and just make it happen. And having that great culture, which is what our team has, we laugh every day, we have a great time, really helps that to depressurize.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So like I said, definitely connect with these guys at Accounting Home Loans if you're interested. They're fantastic at what they do. They are amazing, friendly, and they will help you buy your home.
Absolutely.
AJ, Cullen, thank you so much for jumping on Under the Hood today and telling us all about Accounting Home Loans. It's been so nice to have you.
Thanks, Imogen. Really appreciate it.
It's been fantastic, Imogen. Thank you for your time. Thanks for having us on.
If you would like to contact me, you can reach me at imogen.wilson@momentummedia.com.au. To all of my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Under the Hood. Until next time, chat soon.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.